I wanted to jump on here and talk about some stuff that has been laid into my spirit here recently. And that's this idea of where we need to be when we need Jesus, where we need to be when we go to God. Because I feel like so many people think that they need to be perfect or need to fix something about themselves before they can go to Jesus. And that's just not true. You can be at the rock bottom pit of despair of your life, and Jesus is willing to meet you there. You can think you're not worthy. You can think all these different things and see people that have it more together or whatever. You don't have to be any certain place. Jesus will come to you wherever you are as long as your heart is crying out for him, as long as you want to feel him and see him and need him. As long as you have that, as long as you just, even if it is the smallest inkling to meet Jesus, he is so willing to come to where you are. That is going to lead us straight into the book of Matthew. Matthew is one of the Gospels in the New Testament. He is also one of the disciples of Jesus during the time that Jesus was here. Matthew was a tax collector, which would not have been seen as worthy to even look at the Messiah. So all of these people that were righteous, that thought that they knew everything, that knew Scripture at the time, that knew the law, looked down on Jesus for sitting with Matthew. And Jesus did just that and also said, "Come with me." And Matthew did. So with that being said, I'm not here to soft pedal Jesus. I'm not here to pretend like he has all of these rainbows and butterflies. I am here to talk about the things that he said in the Bible, in Gospels right now, in the people that followed him, what they said. You know, their recordings of what Jesus said, which is not all rainbows and butterflies. There's things that are pretty harsh, and Jesus makes it very clear exactly what he needs and what he wants and what he expects of the people that are going to follow him. So with that being said, we're going to dive right in. And I'm starting at Matthew 10, verse 32, if you want to follow along. So Jesus is talking to his disciples and says, "Therefore, everyone who will acknowledge me before others, I will also acknowledge him before my Father in heaven." So Jesus is our advocate whenever we get up to heaven. He's either going to know us or he's not. As long as we know Jesus and claim that he is ours, that he is the only way to the Father, he's going to know us. But whoever denies me before others, I will also deny him before my Father in heaven. If we deny him here on this earth, he will deny us in front of his Father as we are getting judged. Jesus then goes on to say, "Don't assume that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." That's pretty clear. He did not come here to make everything better. He did not come here to fix everything. He came to separate it. He came to mess it up, and he came to take what is his. He came as an infant to this world. The next time is not going to be that. He's coming in as a lion, and he's going to be taking what is his, who he knows. Jesus then goes on to say, "For I came to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his household." Meaning, again, if you are of Jesus and somebody in your family or somebody in your group or somebody that is not of Jesus, he will separate you. He is not calling us to be sitting with the people that are not of God, because you surround yourself with, in turn, is going to also influence what you're thinking, influence your journey, whatever that may be. And if Jesus is calling you to be obedient and walk away from relationships, you're going to need to be doing that to get closer to him. You cannot stay stagnant. Jesus will meet you wherever you are at. However, he will not ask you to stay stagnant. He will ask you to keep moving. He will ask you to keep going on further to continue his relationship, because as much as he chases us, we have to chase him. And that means that he will, in relationships, he will also start new ones. You may never, in your wildest dreams, think that you will be ending a relationship with somebody, but you will need to in order to continue your journey with Jesus, if he's calling you to do that. Because again, we can't fix everybody. You have to want it in your heart. So as long as you are yearning for that relationship with Jesus, you are yearning to get closer to him, to get closer to the Spirit and to God, and to be able to just tune into that. There are things that God's going to call you to do and to leave. And if you're willing to do that, you're going to continue to further that relationship. So on that same, thread, and again, kind of touching on what Jesus said before, the one who loves a father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. The one who loves a son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So if you're not putting Jesus first and foremost, you cannot know him first and foremost. I know people that are say like, oh, well, there's commandments to honor your father and mother. Yes, but those come after everything to honor God first. So as long as you have God first, everything else will fall in place. Society wants to push that blood is everything. You need to put your family first. You need to do this. Da, 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 da. If they don't know Jesus, they are not your family. There's even stories of Jesus going out and his mothers and brothers come to him and say, come on, Jesus, we got to go. And he goes, who are they? The people that want to know God that are sitting with me are my sisters. They're sitting with me are my brothers. They are the ones that are my family. I've heard it said, blood is thicker than water. I've also heard it said, the blood of the cross is thicker than the water of the womb. Just because people may be your family or people may be best friends, you've known them since kindergarten or middle school or whatever. That does not mean that they're supposed to continue to be in your life. If they are not of God, if they are not trying to continue to move forward with Jesus, then what are they doing? They're holding you back. There have been relationships in my life that I've had to look at, that I've felt like I needed to be, that they were supposed to be in my life because of XYZ. However, I had to step back and say, if I met this person on the street today, would I try to befriend them? And if the answer is no, it's pretty clear where they need to be standing in life. And to be honest, if you go stand in front of the creator of this universe at the end of all of this, and the only reason Jesus doesn't know you is because who you surrounded yourself with, and that you would not be obedient to leave those people behind in order to further your relationship with Jesus, that's a pretty scary thought. It is not going to be easy to leave those people behind either. And it's not comfortable. It's scary. And Jesus actually talks about, going back to Matthew chapter 7, verse 13. This is talking about getting to the kingdom. Jesus says, enter through the narrow gate. Go small, right? Small. It's going to be a small way to get into heaven. For the gate is wide and the road is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who go through it. Taking a wide path is easy. If you're walking through a big open field, that is far easier than trying to hike up a hill, hike up a mountain. You don't have to do much if you're just walking through flat ground. Anybody can be with you. Anybody can be surrounding you. But, if you've gone on a hiking trail, those are not super wide roads. You can't have 4 or 5 people next to you. You can have maybe a person next to you and somebody in front of you and somebody behind you. But a wide open field, you can have as many as you want. But that is not what Jesus calls us to do. He does not call us to stay stagnant. He does not call us to stay flat. He just calls us to move forward. And he says, how narrow is the gate and difficult the road that leads to life, and few find it. For taking that narrow road, yes, it is going to be difficult. He does not say that it's not going to be. He does not, again, say it's going to be rainbows and butterflies. You're not going to get your life handed to you on a silver platter the second you meet Jesus, the second you say, yes, God, you're mine. You do not get your life handed to you on a silver platter. Sorry to burst that bubble if any of you thought. You are called to do better and to keep climbing and to keep going. It will be difficult, but it will be worth it because you will get new life. This life on earth is just so temporary. But if you keep going in the obedient way, you keep calling out for Jesus, you keep saying, I want you, Jesus, I want you in my life, and you keep following your calling. And I say this, and when I say your calling, like when your whole core, your whole soul just like lights up and you're like, oh, I know I have to do this. I have to do this. Or there's this inclination of, I shouldn't be doing this. So let me turn and start going a different way. The more you follow God, the more you follow Jesus, that you let that Spirit try to lead you Again, it's not like God is going to just be like, boom, right here next to you and says, okay, you know what? I need you to do this and I'm going to show you the map. No, it's very quiet. You have to sit, you have to listen and say, okay, God, I'm ready to receive. You have an open heart to actually receive that. That's when he's going to come in and say, okay, I need you to do this. I know it's going to be scary, but it's going to lead you exactly where he needs you. Jesus doesn't say that this is going to be easy. He knows it's going to be hard. He even says, we're going to go back to Matthew 10, starting at verse 16. Jesus then says, look, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. He knows he's throwing us. He knows that this is not going to be easy. He's not pretending like he's given us everything. Yes, so many blessings will come from following Jesus. Do not get that messed up. So many blessings. And it is so amazing that it is the coolest relationship to have, to know God, to know the Spirit, to know Jesus. But that does not mean that it is the easiest thing in the world. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And that verse we just read, many do not do that because it's worth it to them. And it's so sad. So Jesus says, look, I'm sending you out like sheep among the wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as serpents and innocent as doves. Keep your head on a swivel, but don't get dirty about it. No, do not be so naive to think that people are not going to come after you and try to knock you off this path and try to be tempted, because even Jesus was tempted. The devil took Jesus and said, I'll give you everything. The devil tempted Jesus to knock Jesus off his calling, to knock Jesus off his path, to knock Jesus off of saving every single soul that will be willing to claim Jesus as their own. Right? And Jesus said, no, I know what my Father wants from me, and I will do it, and I will see. And I mean, the devil even threw scripture, threw prophecies at Jesus, because he knows this word just as much as Jesus did. He just wanted to twist it. He just wanted to manipulate it. But Jesus said, no, let me throw the other scripture at you that validates what my Father wants from me. So he was not so naive to know that he would be tempted. However, he stayed as innocent as a dove to make sure we could all go to the Father. Jesus then says, beware of them, because they will hand you over to local courts and flog you in their synagogues. You will even be brought before governors and kings because of me, to bear witness to them and to the Gentiles. Guys, it's nothing different than we do now. We might not flog people, but we rip them apart if their ideas don't match ours. I mean, there's so much unrest, and we dare post anything on social media. I mean, get ripped apart either way. And there are so many people willing to justify the sin of this world and try to make you feel bad for doing better, for sticking to the narrow road, for leaving the wide path, for leaving the comfort and the easiness of the flesh, and to follow the Spirit. Jesus goes on to say, but when they hand you over, don't worry about how or what you have to speak, for you will be given what to say at that hour, because it isn't you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father is speaking through you. You're craving that relationship with Jesus. You're craving to know God. You're craving to know the Spirit. So when you get into these situations, it boils up, and I mean, you start talking. You don't even sometimes realize what you're saying. That's God. That's the Spirit talking through you and with you, because Jesus knows we don't have it all together. God knows we don't have it all together. And they're like, okay, let me drop that in for them. As long as we are willing to know that He does not leave us. He never leaves us to fend for ourselves. God's will is not bigger than God's coverage. God knows where He's going to push us, and He's got it covered. He's got us. There are times we're going to think that we're free falling. It may take 6 months to realize what that plan was, but you look back and you're like, oh, I get it now. And thank you for seeing me to the other side. He doesn't He throws us out, but he still keeps us surrounded. It may feel like we're so alone at times, but we never are. You just keep grabbing onto Jesus, even in those times that you are so alone and you have nobody and you feel like there's nothing that understands you. Jesus does. You just keep grasping towards him and he will reach back. He will not leave you. But you have to want it with all of your soul, with all of your heart. You have to want it. The harder you keep going with him, he will reciprocate and he will keep reaching back. It may not feel like it at times, but he will continue to do. This world is so quick, again, to try to knock us off the path of knowing. And they try to make it comfortable for us to stay in our sin and to justify it and to mentally destroy the people that are trying to do better. And sometimes even worse. Jesus goes on to say, this is going to be Matthew 10:28. Don't fear those who kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul. Rather fear him who is able to destroy both the soul and body in hell. It's pretty clear cut. People in this world can't do anything to our soul. However, God is the only person that can control where the soul goes, right? So if we're not finding Jesus, if we're not grabbing on, if we're not trying to strengthen that relationship with Jesus, and Jesus says, I don't know them, God can condemn the soul. But only God can do that. So while people may be mentally torn apart, physically beaten and abused, nobody can touch the soul here on earth. Nothing. The only way the enemy can get to the soul is if you deny Jesus. If you do not have that faith, if you do not have the craving to want to know God, the enemy will try to surround you with people that love you. Jesus, though, as long as you are listening, will continue to lead you to where you need to be and to who you know. But you have to have faith in him to be able to do that. You have to know and give him that credit and say, you know what, I don't understand this. I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to go ahead and follow this feeling, leave this relationship, leave this person, leave this group that doesn't have the same ideas and share the same thoughts and feelings and emotions. And I'm going to go ahead and move where I feel like God is trying to lead me to go. Because everybody wants to portray that you automatically get saved, that you automatically get to heaven because you have faith. Here's the kicker, though. I'm going to jump over to James. People want to give you this, I don't want to call it a false sense, but you have to have faith in Jesus to continue to move forward because, again, the Spirit is going to lead you to pivot in parts of your life. And again, Jesus can be so involved in everything. It's not just relationships. It can be where your next career move is, what your next car is, the time. Take a left turn instead of a right turn, be on time or be late, avoid the accident. There's just so much. Everybody doesn't want to pretend like Jesus can't be involved in their literally everyday things, but he can. But you have to give that credit to him. You have to give that faith over. You've just got to be willing to let go. And so, yes, you have to know Jesus by having the faith. However, as you continue to grow in your relationship with Jesus, he's going to call you to do things and do works. And while you can't earn your way into heaven, works do mean something. So let's jump over to James. This is Jesus's brother. So this is going to be James 2. We're going to start in 14 and kind of jump around in this. Jesus's brother goes on to say, James says, what good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but does not have works? Can such faith save him? A lot of people today will be like, yes. However, let's see what else James says. If a brother or sister is without clothes and lacks daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, stay warm, and be well fed, but you don't give them what the body needs, what good is it? If you had somebody you really care about come up to you and say, I am starving, I am cold, and you don't know what to do, and you're like, oh, good luck, be blessed. Have faith that Jesus will help you. What if you were the faith? What if they were leaving because they felt like they were supposed to come to you, and then you just shoo them away. What faith does that give them, and what faith does that give you? Because you're like, nope, bye. And I'm not saying you take everybody in, but if you feel like you are supposed to do that work, you're missing out on faith for yourself, and you're potentially missing out on faith for somebody else. James goes on to say then, in the same way, faith, if it doesn't have works, is dead by itself. You can have faith. Jesus does not call you to stay stagnant in faith. He wants you to grow it. Holy Spirit is going to continue to push you to grow it. James says, but someone will say, you have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without works, and I will show you my faith by my works. Right? So somebody's going to show you faith without works and what that looks like, and somebody's going to show you faith with works and what that looks like. James goes on to say, you believe that God is one. Good. Even the demons believe, and they shudder. So again, just as the devil tempted Jesus, knew all of the scripture, knew all of the words back then, the demons know God, the demons know Jesus, and they're terrified. Again, Jesus says, do not fear what's on this earth, fear the one that can kill the body and soul. We have to go through Jesus to get to God, because only through the Son can you get to the Father. James goes on to say, senseless person, are you willing to learn that faith without works is useless? He's saying right here, faith alone is not enough. You need works. Yes, you get to Jesus, you get to know Jesus by faith. However, you need to do good works. Wasn't Abraham our father justified by works and offering Isaac, his son, on the altar? Okay, for those of you that don't know, Abraham was promised a son to have many nations. Full backstory with that, but we're just going to focus on Isaac and Abraham. So, as Abraham was promised many nations through Isaac, God looks at or speaks to Abraham and says, I need you to sacrifice your son. Abraham goes, oh, okay. I was supposed to get many nations out of Isaac, but I will do as you say. So Abraham starts with servants, Isaac. They get to the bottom of this hill, and he says to his servant, stay here. Isaac and I are going to go ahead and go on up. We're going to build the altar, and then we're going to go ahead and make the sacrifice. At some point on their journey up this hill, when it's just Abraham and Isaac, Isaac goes, so where's the sacrifice? And Abraham says, God will provide. Abraham knowing that Isaac is to be the sacrifice. Again, it's not like Isaac is grown at this point. It's not like Isaac has had children and had a wife. That is not this. So before he can even have his adulthood, God is telling Abraham, I'm going to need you to go ahead and sacrifice him. Get up to the top, build the altar. Puts Isaac on the altar. Goes to swing to sacrifice him. And Angel comes down and goes, okay, yep, finish. Thank you. Thank you for that. And God says, I see your faith. Don't sacrifice Isaac. And in fact, here's actually a ram. Go ahead and sacrifice that. And, wait, let's look at this on a couple different levels. Abraham, knowing that God had promised him, hey, I'm going to get many nations out of your son. However, I'm asking you to sacrifice him. Knowing this, Abraham still thought that out, still said, okay, you know what, God? I believe you. I'm going to go sacrifice him. I don't know how you're going to make many nations out of him, but all right, then get stopped. Give it another sacrifice. Can you imagine everything going through Abraham's brain at that point? God, you promised me this. How are you going to make this happen? Like, are you really going to make me kill my son? I can't imagine. I can't imagine what Abraham was thinking. On the flip side, I cannot imagine what Isaac was thinking. He's walking up this and it's like, this is not how we sacrifice things. There's got to be a sinking feeling. And then he's being put up on an altar, and he has to believe enough that something is going to stop his father from sacrificing him. Yet Isaac is also willing to be sacrificed if that is what God is calling Abraham to do. So both of them have so much faith in God. They're like, we don't know how this is going to work out, but okay. James goes on to say, you see that faith was active together with his works, and by his works, faith was made complete. Okay. So Abraham had to hear, had to act, and then God could act. And then it all gets wrapped up pretty nicely, right? I'm going to give you a son. He's going to have many nations. Well, I'm going to need you to sacrifice him. Okay. I'm going to stop that sacrifice, but I needed to know that you were listening and that you were here, but I've got you covered. Again, God's will is not bigger than what he's willing to cover you. Okay. He's going to make you step out. He's going to make you have uncomfortable situations, but he's going to be there to cover you. But you have to have that faith. You have to be willing to walk it out. You have to be willing to be obedient to keep growing in that faith. It's not going to be easy. He's going to throw you to the wolves. He's going to put you in uncomfortable situations. However, there is faith with knowing that God will be there. There's comfort with knowing that God will be there. God's will is not bigger than God's grace, right? God knows where he's going to be sending you. And again, that can be through the fire. That can be into the wolves' den. However, Jesus has already been thrown in there first. Jesus has made that narrow path for you to stay on and stick to. As long as you are trying to keep on that, he knows you're going to fall on your face. He knows you're going to screw up. That's why he came. That's why he endured the flesh of this world, the torture of this world, mutilation and manipulation of this world. We destroyed him so that we could be saved by him. He has made a narrow path for us to get through every single situation. We have to be willing to try to follow it.